Hello, and I hope you're doing well. Another debut on Hammers Chat. We've got Matt from the Blue Room join us, talk all things Everton, get his thoughts on West Ham, the game, and of course, David Moyes. But before we go to him, how would you evaluate your season so far, Matt?
Well, it's been very, very dull and very, very concerning to quite heartwarming and nice and comfortable in the last few weeks, really. And obviously, we had the situation this season where I think we all kind of thought after the way we finished last year that under Sean Dyche we'd be just fine, would tick along steadily, and we'd end up getting to the new stadium and seeing off Goodison Park in a way which was without any major fears. But obviously, as the season went on, it didn't turn into that at all. We started off terribly, and then towards the turn of the year, things just got really dreadful and really dull again. And I think when the new ownership came in, it always felt like a matter of time, really, before they made the change. And since they made the change, obviously, David Moyes lost his first game, but we're 8th, unbeaten in the Premier League since then. We're 16 points clear of relegation. And it just feels like after a long time where we've just been worried about relegation, worried about finance, the whole club has settled down a little bit. And I think in the short term, we can spend these last 5 games at Goodison actually enjoying the place and saying a proper farewell to the place. And then obviously in the longer term as well, moving into that new stadium with new owners that are financially secure, it feels like Everton's on a much more sounder footing, as all fans want really after the years of turmoil.
In regards to, let's do the stadium first of all. Have you got your season ticket? I've seen a lot of Everton fans posting up like what their view is going to be. How are you feeling? Are you excited or are you sad about Goodison Park or a bit of both?
Yeah, so I've got my season ticket for next year now. So it was all done virtually. Like you had to basically pick it online. And so I got that probably 6 weeks ago now, I'd say. In one of the first batches. So I've got my seats in this south stand, which is the big stand behind the goal. So very excited about that. And then about 3 weeks ago, we were lucky to get tickets in the ballots for the first test event. So I think as part of the administrative procedure for opening the new ground, Everton needs to hold 3 different test events. I'm sure West Ham have maybe gone through something similar. So the capacity will increase in each one. So the first one was 10,000. So it's one of the lucky 10,000. And yeah, being brutally honest before, I was very nervous about leaving Goodison Park because I was kind of worried I was going to walk into that new stadium, walk up to your seat and just not quite get it and not quite get the feeling, because I suppose it's not one of those as a fan you can sort of change. This stadium's going to outlast myself and a lot of other Evertonians who goes to the game. So I was a bit worried and apprehensive about that, but I think when I walked in and saw it for the first time, I did get that buzz. It does feel different. It feels like the club have taken into the requests and the needs of what the fan base wants in terms of it being an iconic venue, an iconic structure, being close to the pitch, steep stands, all those things. It feels like they ticked the boxes. And while you could tell it wasn't finished quite yet when we were in there, it did kind of give you that feeling of reassurance that it's going to be hard walking out of Goodison Park for the final time, but what we've got down there on the waterfront is potential for a new beginning for the football club, and I think one that people are starting to get really excited about.
In terms of the new era for Everton, I noticed is it Thelwell, who just left at the minute?
So his contract, he's not left yet. His contract's not being renewed at the end of the season, so he's the director of football, and to bring the new CEO in at the end of the season as well from Leeds and Angus Kinnear.
So for us, is Kinnear going in? I did see that rumour. He's used to be at West Ham before he went on to do things at Leeds and whatever. For the uneducated like myself, when it comes to Everton, what's the latest and what's going on with the owners of Everton? Is it, like you said, has everything just settled down now? You're on a sound footing. Is there money to spend in the summer? Has any of that come out? Do you know?
So going back a few years, Farmer Sheary's obviously was the owner of the football club. Very long story short, a lot of his money is tied up in Russian companies and Russian assets. And obviously when the war in Ukraine started and clubs weren't allowed to tap into that money, Everton had to suspend a lot of sponsorship deals. He didn't have access to a lot of his money, and ultimately the club suffered because of that. And being honest, there were times, certainly around this time last year, when the club was hit with those two separate points deductions and the PSR concerns were all coming out, that it felt like the club was in not just a Premier League crisis and crisis to stay up, but an existential one. There was talk about having enough cash flow to keep the lights on at the training ground and at Goodison Park. So, and then obviously in the following summer, the Freaking Group were talked about as potentially being new owners, and they'd reached an agreement with Everton to potentially take over. That then fell through over an agreement Everton, or a loan Everton took out with 777, who were another potential owner. So that was a huge blow. So it felt like there was kind of no way out of this, because Everton had got themselves in such a deep financial hole. But in about November time, reports came through that the Freaking Group came back to the table, and then obviously a deal was eventually done with them, where they found their way around the loan with 777. And in December, they were the owners of the football club. And yeah, it's still, obviously still early days. We still haven't heard loads from them, but they've obviously made the mark in getting David Moyes in and steadying the ship. That's a decision that they've clearly got right. And now the change in the recruitment model behind the scenes, moving away from the director of football model, like, with Kevin Farwell, and yeah, starting to stamp the mark. So it's early days yet, but it does feel after a few years of Everton being a bit of a circus that there are some grown-ups back in the room, for want of a better phrase.
With, like you said, a change of model of how you do things with director of football, does that mean Moyes will likely be in charge of the transfer window coming up?
I don't think he's going to be solely in charge, but it feels like he's going to have a significant amount of power, if you want to phrase it like that. In the statements Everton put out confirming the raft of off-the-pitch changes last week, one of the things that was made clear was that the summer planning had started. And I think that the terminology they used, this may not be verbatim, but it would be the recruitment team and David Moyes. So it felt like they went out of the way to kind of mention that Moyes was going to be involved in it. I remember David Moyes from his time at Everton and the amount of amazing players he found for us in his first spell. People like Seamus Coleman, Stephen Pienaar, Mikel Arteta, Tim Cahill. Even go up to players like Fellaini. And I appreciate it's a different world now. So I do trust his eye for a player, but I would be a bit uncomfortable about Moyes being the sole person who's going to be determining Everton's transfer strategy. But I don't think it's going to be that. It feels like the club have been stung enough in recent years to know that they can't just sign players for the here and now. They have to think about the future. They have to think about sell-on value and all of those very sensible, but albeit quite boring things to talk about, really. But yeah, I think he's definitely going to have a significant say for sure.
In terms of David Moyes, being honest, did you want him back, and what do you make of him so far?
Yes, I definitely did. And I think the reason I wanted him back ultimately, and probably did for a few months before it actually happened, because I think he's just objectively proven himself to be a better manager than Sean Dyche, and he was available. And I kind of wanted the last few months at Goodison Park to feel like they had some kind of emotional resonance. And I think Dyche, for while he's got strengths, that's one thing he did a lot of at Everton. He kind of took the fun out of everything, really. And it got to the point where, as a team, we were... No, right, Tommy. Sorry. Yeah, it got to the point where, like, as a team, we were just so dull and droll. And even the things he was saying, though, he's conducting himself in press conferences, it just, there's no real joy to it all. And I think Moyes, glad he's not the most happy, jovial fellow. He's just looked very comfortable and very at ease with being back at Everton. He said the right things when he's had to. He's been ambitious in what he said when he's had to. He's been calm and composed as well. And it almost feels like a dad who sort of went away from a family 10, 15 years ago in search of better things, coming back after all those years to rebuild the family and put it back together again. And it felt right. And I think while he's not been able to change too much dramatically because of the situation of the squad and the financial situation Everton's still in, he just made a lot of really smart sort of changes to the team and the way in which they set up. And listen, the results speak for themselves. There's a fear amongst the footballing world outside of Everton that nobody but Sean Dyche could do the job that Sean Dyche was doing or do it better than him. And I think David Moyes and the way in which he's come in and changed things and got everything going again has proven that theory pretty dramatically wrong.
Are you confident he's the long-term man for your club?
I think you look at him, certainly he's signed a 2.5-year deal, so I imagine he'll be certainly, from that point But yeah, I think one of the things that's always been interesting about Moyes, even in his most recent years, is that when I've heard him speaking about being a coach, he's always talked about how he wants to build something again. You know, I don't think he sees himself as that kind of that come in and fight and move on sort of manager. He feels like he's got a lot to offer. And I suppose when you look at the job he did at West Ham over the course of a number of years, that kind of bears out. I know things obviously ended quite badly in the end. But you look at the way in which he built that squad, the way in which they progressed, some of the football they played at times, it shows that he can still do it. And obviously he did it at Everton, albeit 20 years ago. So I think he sees himself certainly as the long term. But this is Everton and this is football. Things can change very, very quickly, can't they? But Everton obviously got to a point in January where they needed a manager, and when they go asking Moyes for the job, the power is very much in Moyes' hands. So it's not like they could have gone to him and said, "It's 6 months, Davey, and we'll see you off the end of the season." It was always going to be a bit more than that. But I think any concerns about that have been settled over the last few weeks. He's come in and obviously hit the ground running to spectacular effect.
With all things considered, you've got Moyes, you've got your new owners, there's a change in the boardroom level, you've got the new stadium. What's your personal aims for Everton going into next season? Because I think you can look at that now. Now you're safe from relegation. Christmas time, you were looking over your shoulder a bit, but now that's gone. You can look ahead to August, September. What are you hoping that May 2026 will show for Everton?
I just think I want to see some kind of progress. I don't think we're ready to be challenging for Europe yet by any means. The squad is going to look completely different this time next season. I think the Cup's be something like 13 players who are out of contract or the loan ends. So there's going to be a lot of work to do from that point of view. But I just want to see progress. I want to see Everton passing the eye test. I want to enjoy that first year at the new ground. You see teams move in sometimes that they really struggle to get going. The atmosphere struggles to form initially. So I think if we continue ticking over, we're around mid-table, maybe get the odd big win here and there against teams who are coming to the new grounds to still make it feel like home and get that going. I mean, there'll be supporters. I mean, there are already supporters who are unhappy on Saturday after we drew with Wolves, even though the situation we've been in. There'll be people who always want more, but I'll describe myself as a bit of a basic bitch, really, when it comes to Everton. I just want to go with the match, see them getting better steadily, and enjoy it. And if we finish next season 12th, and young players who are in the team getting better, and the styles forming, and it feels like the club's moving forward gradually off the pitch, then I think I'll just about be happy with that.
Anyway, from your team to my team, what do you make of West Ham?
Do you know what? Before we came on and started talking about, I was thinking about West Ham, and it's really hard to know, because I think the games that you've done well and won in have not been on the TV, whereas the ones you've been poor in and struggled have been on the telly. So it feels like every time I've watched you under Potter, it's sort of been a bit not quite there. I watched the game against Newcastle on Monday, and it was a bit of a hard watch for both teams, being brutally honest. But I don't know. There's some really good players there, aren't there? Obviously Bowen and Kudus stand out. I thought the signings in the summer were going to really help you kick on, but it feels like they've not really worked. It feels like maybe you change your centre backs every week, and that doesn't help either. The goalkeepers, at times in the season, seems to change as well through injury and lack of form. So I don't know. It just felt like you've not really had that stability at any point this season. I feel like Graham Potter ultimately will be a good manager for you guys. Obviously, there was a lot of links to him in Everton, wasn't there, as well? But I'm not just saying this in hindsight. He never really quite felt like the right fit for Everton, and the way in which you think of the two clubs and their identity. I think West Ham are maybe a bit more about football purity and getting it on the deck and that type of football, whereas Everton are maybe a bit more aggressive, up and out, a bit more direct. So I feel like the manager we've got doesn't suit who we are. But yeah, it's really difficult, because one of the fears I've had about the stadium is probably been born out from watching you guys struggle to kind of settle in yours, and all the moaning about that. And I know it's completely different situations, but it doesn't feel like that's gone well, and people are still maybe quite miffed about that. So yeah, you just feel like a bit of a Rubik's Cube of a football club to me, and I know what that feels like, because Everton, I imagine, feel like a bit of a Rubik's Cube to a lot of people.
I like that, a Rubik's Cube of a football club. I'm going to steal that phrase. I'm going to use that going forward. Thank you very much. 12 months ago, we obviously or near enough, we announced that Moyes would not be remaining as manager. What was your reaction to that as a neutral? Or I say neutral, you had David Moyes at your club for such a long period as well. So while you don't support West Ham, you've obviously experienced him as a manager prior. So when we announced that he was no longer remaining as West Ham manager, did you think, yeah, get it, or did you think that's a mistake?
No, I did get it. It was one of them where I think people someday, doing probably what we do for, in terms of podcasts and YouTube and stuff like that, you get this sometimes where, we had this with Dice. People on the outside were looking at Everton going, what do they want? What are they talking about? And I think it's only when you watch stuff like, you guys, or you probably get deep into what the fan base are thinking about, that you really get it. I think managers ultimately in this day and age just outstay the welcome sometimes, don't they? And maybe Moyes didn't outstay his welcome. Maybe that's not the right term, but it was the right time for him to go, wasn't it? And there were times last season where I watched West Ham and they lost, and I'd look at the table and you'd still be around 7th, 8th, and it'd be like, it feels like no one's happy, but you're still doing well on the table. But then there's some really bad results where at times, I think, did you go to Fulham and lose 5-0? I think there's another 5-0 in there somewhere, wasn't there, as well? And there's just a few results like that we look at it and think, what Moyes is about, that's not him. That's probably a sign that there's something is not quite right there. So it just felt like the best time for everyone, really, to move on. Moyes, I imagine, will go down as one of West Ham's greatest ever managers for what he did there. It was nice to see him get the send off he deserved on that last day of the season. I've sort of been up and down on Moyes since he left Everton. Like when he left, I sort of got it and wished him well. And he said some things about Everton when he was at Man United, which made me not like him, and I kind of soured on him a little bit. And as the years have gone by, I've sort of obviously.
What did he say? Sorry, what did he?
It was just when he left. He's got a little bit nasty when he left Everton. He tried to sign Baines and Fellaini to Manchester United in that first summer. He said a few comments about Everton and a few comments about the supporters, which probably at the time, God, how long goes that? Like over 10 years ago, I was a little bit younger. And, one of those things you just take it a bit more personally. Which it's just football. It's just probably Moyes fighting his corner for Manchester United. But yeah, I'm obviously fully one round on him now, and I was so pleased to see him get that bit of silverware for West Ham, and doing his dad dancing and running down the line and stuff like that. He just seems like a very wholesome, humble man. And it's great to see him so settled and content with life, being back at Everton. But yeah, the job he did at West Ham, I think, considering 2 spells where you were when he took over both spells, is absolutely marvellous, really.
All right, turning our attention to Saturday afternoon at Goodison Park. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's like I said, we've only got 5 games of Goodison left. People desperate for tickets for this one, because people want to get to Goodison before we move. So the atmosphere will be good. I think it might be one of the last Saturday 3 o'clock games we've got at Goodison as well. So just from that point of view. But yeah, I think the game last season was probably one of the low points for us, really, where West Ham came and won 3-1. A couple of late goals, I think, that day. But yeah, it's just one of the fixtures. Like it always seems like there's goals in it these days. The Goodison Park game, there's been times where Everton have been well on top. I remember the 4-0 when really scored from inside his own half. I also remember when Everton lost 3-2 somehow. I think Payet scored 94th minute, something like that, when Roberto Martinez made some absolutely mad substitutions. So let's hope it's one of those games where both teams just go for it, because neither of these teams have got issues to worry about, have they? It's both going to be safe, both under new managers. Both seem to be feeling quite good about themselves. Albeit obviously you guys lost on Monday, but about some good results recently. So yeah, I think Everton will go for it to be on the front foot. They'll be aggressive, and yeah, I quite fancy it just because we're playing well. We're at home, and it'll be a good atmosphere. So yeah, I think the Blues might sneak it 2-1.
2-1, right? Love it. Thank you, Matt. And you guys at home, if you enjoyed this video, well, you might want a little bit more. I'm recording a video with Matt for the Everton side of things. I'll put a link in the description below. But if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribe to have a chat with myself and Matt. Well, we'll catch you in a minute.